now.
Hi everyone, welcome to the AfriPlus Energy BYD B-Box Premium webinar. My name's Ivan, I'm the Technical Support Manager. Joining us is Khan, who's the Business Relations Director for AfriPlus Energy in the Southern African region. Today we'll be covering, we'll dive right into the BYD battery range, where we're going to introduce the new BYD Premium batteries. Then we'll have some example BYD installations. We'll also talk a bit about the South African market and how it affects lithium battery sales in the region. We'll also talk about who is BYD, the company history, and also why to choose a BYD product. Then we'll also show where AfriPlus fits in the chain. Afterwards, we'll have Q&A where we can answer your questions. If anyone has any questions, if they can please post them in the chat, and we'll either ask them at the end of the webinar or via email. So jumping right into the new batteries, here we've got the new premium range. As you can see, they're of a tower, the two are of a tower design, the high voltage HVS and HVM, and the LVS, low voltage. And we also have the LVL. So on our left, we've got the yellow, on the yellow background, we've got the HVS, HVM. So the tower design consists of a few parts: the base, the modules, and the top box. And all the connections happen in the top box, but we'll talk more about that later. The HV on our models stands for high voltage. So you can see that our models have 3 letters. The first 2 letters tell if it's high voltage or low voltage. So here we can see HVS and HVM, and only the HVM will be available in South Africa and the Southern African region. And then we have the LVS and LVL. The LV stands for low voltage, and the S stands for small. And here we have the LVL, which is the low voltage large. So the LVS and LVL are both of the tower design, but we'll delve into that more later. Then we have the LVL, which is a 15.4 kilowatt unit, which tends to cater for the larger battery capacity installations for low voltage. But we're going to get into that with much more detail later. And here we have, lastly, our commercial range. These are large, high voltage battery banks. The nominal voltage is typically between 700 and 800 volts, and your capacity is anywhere from 130 to 230 kilowatts per battery, but we'll dive into that in much more detail in just a bit. So here we've got the bits that make up your batteries. So on our LVS, here we can see the base, battery modules, and the PDU. So you can have between 1 and 6 modules per tower on the LVS, and it sits there just on the base, just like Lego, plugs in, and the PDU plugs in on top. There's no other wires that go in between the modules. There's no dip switches to set battery addresses. It's just plug and play. All of your wire connections to your inverter happen on the PDU for your power, and then you do require an external BMU per battery bank. And BMU is the interface between your inverter and your batteries. The HVM is a very similar design, where you've got a tower where you have your BCU base, your modules, and your BCU top. You can have between 3 and 8 modules on the HVM, and the only difference in topology is that you don't need a BMU between your battery and your inverter. And then in the middle here, we've got the LVL. The LVL comes in 2 parts. It makes it easier to install. You can also stack one battery on top of another to give you a 30 kilowatt tower. You do require 1 BMU per battery bank. So these batteries can be put in parallel, the LVS and the LVL, to make 1 battery bank, and you only need 1 BMU per battery bank. Here we've got some illustrations of how the tower works. So here we've seen our base, and the modules fit quite snugly on top of each other, and there's just a little securing screw to hold the tower together. And here we can see the little tab where the tower is mounted to the wall. It makes it very quick and easy to install. You can put a tower together quite easily within an hour, probably less. Sometimes the longest part of putting a battery together is unpacking it. And here we can see the Lego type design where they just fit quite snugly into each other. So here we've got some of the new features of the new battery. All of the connections happen in one area. That's on the tower design IP55, but we'll talk more about that. You've got a very high energy density. With these new batteries, you can have a lot of power in very little floor space. And with the little locking screws holding everything together, it makes installing things very quick, very quick and very easy. And there's a very user-friendly light and LED status indicator, which can tell the state of the battery should there be any issues. So here we've got the family replacement guide. So we're going to see how which models of the new batteries replace which ones of the old versions. So on our right, we've got the two most popular batteries in South Africa, the most popular BYD batteries in South Africa, which is the BBox Pro 13.8 and the BBox Pro 2.5 to 10. So the BBox Pro 13.8 is replaced by the LVL, and the LVL is a 15.4 kilowatt battery. Then we've got the BBox Pro 2.5, and in that cabinet you can typically have 10 kilowatts, and that's the replacement for that is the LVS. And the LVS is a 3.8 kilowatt module, and you can stack them up to 8 high. So here we've got the LV model that typically wasn't very available in South Africa. And here we also have the BBox Pro HV, and that also wasn't very popular in South Africa. It wasn't very widely available, and neither was the LV. So new to the South African market, well, relatively new, is the high voltage batteries. In South Africa, we didn't have a history of high voltage batteries and high voltage inverters because our needs are generally for backup purposes, and the high voltage inverters typically didn't have that incorporated into their functionality. With the newer generations of high voltage inverters, they can do load shifting and energy storage, and they can also provide backup. So we're going to see a lot more high voltage inverters and high voltage batteries coming to South Africa. And here we can see the range that will be available in South Africa, the HVM. So that's definitely an exciting space to keep an eye on. Some of the advantages of the new range, it's very much quicker and easier to install, no battery addresses to set, no cables in between modules. With regards to the energy density, you've got a lot more power in less floor space, which is a great improvement. We've got online monitoring, which is a great benefit. And the cold weather performance is great on these new batteries. I'll go into more detail just now. And improved SoC calibration, which helps predicting how much battery power you have left. Here are just some of the inverters that are compatible with the LVS and the LVL, the low voltage batteries. There are more. Please look at our our inverter compatibility guide, and there are more always being added. So this list is never static. So here we can see some of the popular ones, which is the Goodwe, SMA, Victron, and Sungro. Then we can see some of the compatible high voltage inverters, and these would be the ones that are compatible with our HVM. Here we can see Goodwe again, SMA, Fronius, and Sungro. And all of these inverters have got backup functionality. I'd like to delve a little bit into the spec sheet so we can show you a bit about how these batteries function. So as you can see here, the Lego design is quite prominent because it's quite a unique feature. The nice thing about it is you can extend your battery at any time, and it's very quick and easy to extend. You can, with the LVS, extend your system anywhere from 3.8 to 245 kilowatt hours. Our cells are cobalt-free LFP, lithium iron phosphate, which is very good for the environment. And moving on a little bit, here we can see the tower design and how the different towers relate to each other. And here we can see the cold weather performance. So our batteries work at full power between 5 degrees and 50 degrees. If it gets colder than that, the battery will derate its charge and discharge a little bit in order to protect the battery. However, between 5 and 50 degrees, it works at full power. The other great thing about the LVS is the IP55 rating, which gives you a lot of flexibility in terms of where you can install the battery. But we'll talk more about that just now. And the LVS is nominal voltage, which is 51 volts, which makes it compatible with any nominal 48 volt system, depending if your inverter is compatible. So here we've got the LVL, which is typically for your installations that require larger battery capacities. So again, these batteries, all our premium range, use the cobalt-free LFP, and it's fairly easy to install. There aren't any overly heavy bits. It's between 70 and 80 kilograms each module, each part of it, which means it's not incredibly heavy or difficult to install. You can parallel these modules up to 986 kilowatt hours, which is nearly a megawatt, which is quite amazing. And again, you can extend at any time. So here's just some little taste of the spec sheets. And here we can see again the great cold weather performance. Unfortunately, it is IP20, so these do have to be installed indoors. And here we can see the HVM. So I want to talk a bit more about the HVM because there's not a lot of high voltage batteries in South Africa, and it's a new idea. So here again, same Lego design, can extend at any time, and you can parallel the HVM between 8.3 and 66 kilowatt hours. So the interesting thing about the high voltage batteries is they're a bit different in how they function or how you install them relative to low voltage batteries. So here we can see your number of modules. We start at 3, and we go up to 8. And as you put on an extra module, the maximum amount of current you can take out of them stays at 50 amps. However, your voltage goes up. This is done in order that you can match your nominal voltage depending on using, which is how it differs from the low voltage installations. And here we can see these batteries are IP55, which is also great news for when you want to install somewhere that has got low space, then you can actually install it almost outside. The HVM has also got the great temperature range where it operates at full power between 5 and 50 degrees. So here we can introduce the commercial range. It comes in 2 options: C130, which is 130 kilowatts, and C230, which is 230 kilowatts. It's designed for mainly energy storage systems where you want to load shift and store solar energy you've used and use it later. However, there are going to be newer inverters with backup capabilities. So this is going to be an exciting space to watch, especially at the end of the year when we have inverters with backup functionality to work with these batteries. When we install our batteries, we install them and commission them with an app. This is one of the advantages of the new premium range in that when you want to update the firmware on them, pardon me, you no longer need a cable and a laptop and TeamViewer, etc. And all you need is your cell phone and an internet connection. If you don't have an internet connection, you can download your firmware where you do have an internet connection and then update it on site. The other nice thing about the new battery range is they've got dual processors in them. The advantage of this is you can update the firmware without having to turn the battery off. So when the firmware updates, one of the processors turns off and updates and the other one keeps functioning. And when one is updated, that updated one turns on and the other one turns off and updates. So it means you don't have to turn anything off in order to do firmware updates. So here we can see some BYD example installations. And on our left, we can see 60 kilowatts of batteries. Here we have the LVL 15.4, and they're stacked on top of each other to make 30 kilowatt towers. And you've got two 30 kilowatt towers next to each other to make 60 kilowatts. And that's a really small space for that amount of power. It's only about 1.3 meters wide and 650 deep. And here we can see the little BMU there. And we can see it's a nice, quick, easy installation. And here we can see the inverters on our right. Next, we've got the little comparison between the old 13.8s and the new LVLs in terms of floor space. So here we can see there's 7 13.8s, and those 7 can be replaced by 6 LVLs. So it really is a large improvement in energy density, which is great for saving floor space. And here we can see one of the advantages of having batteries that are IP55 rated. So typically in the high voltage market is in Europe, and its high voltage market is typically 70% of the market or above in many European countries. So in Europe, they're very conscious about space. Space is very expensive in Europe, and often there's a need to install inverters somewhere where it won't occupy any living space. And so here we can see an IP55 battery mounted outside and the inverter as well. So the entire system is outdoors, which is great if you have great limitations on your space available to install. So a good question to ask is, who is BYD? A lot of people possibly haven't heard of BYD, so I'd just like to introduce BYD, the company. And BYD is a global leader in electronics, lithium batteries, electric passenger vehicles, electric commercial vehicles, and rail transit. And a bit of the company overview: it was founded in 1995 in Shenzhen, China, and employs about 250,000 people in 2018. If BYD had their factories in Cape Town and Cape Town only, then about 1 in 20 people in Cape Town would work for BYD. BYD is quite a large company, and the company revenue in 2018 was $19.4 billion US, and it produced in 2018 250,000 vehicles. Warren Buffett, who typically looks for high companies with a great future, holds 10% of BYD. So another great reason to choose BYD batteries is testing. So as I mentioned before, BYD manufactures a lot of electric vehicles. Those electric vehicles range from the commercial to the passenger vehicles. So there's, if you can see at the back, some buses, and the front we've got some cars. In those buses, they use the same cells as they do in the premium batteries, which is great news for testing because those buses run all day, every day. And the other great news is BYD also makes a range of taxis and passenger vehicles. Those passenger vehicles have been running for many, many years. And speaking of taxis, here we can see some BYD taxis. These were first introduced in about 2018, and some of those taxis are still running on their original battery packs. And these taxis run all day, every day. So these batteries have been thoroughly tested in quite a challenging environment, going at 100 kilometers an hour or so, being shaken up on and in challenging environments. So these cells have been thoroughly tested. Speaking of more testing, here's some of the rigorous testing they do in the lab, which is, this one specific is called a nail puncture test, where they stick a nail straight through the battery. This is one of the worst things that you can basically do to a lithium battery. What they're doing here is they're testing for thermal runaway. And as we can see, this battery survives without a problem. Here's another test they do, which is called the roasting test. Again, they're testing for thermal runaway, and the battery's passed without a problem. And here's they do a 100-ton crush test on the batteries. This is great news for if you're installing batteries for the purpose of, say, backup or energy storage, because these batteries have been tested to the harshest conditions, and they're just going to sit quite quietly in a corner in a garage somewhere. So it's really a great advantage to have the batteries tested to this level of safety. The other great reason to use BYD is production. BYD's got some of the world's most advanced production facilities. And when the battery, and for example, when the batteries are linked together, as you can see over here, there's the posts, and when they are put together, they aren't screwed together with a nut or bolt or anything. Bits of your conductor is laser welded to the posts of the battery. This makes it very difficult for things to wiggle loose, and it makes for a good solid connection that lasts for a very long time. These are just some of the high-tech things that go into the premium battery to make it a reliable product. So here we can see on our right, the production facility is highly automated. So to minimize human intervention in the production process, a completely one-stop process is used for integrating, slurry mixing, coating, pressing, lamination, assembly, etc. This can ensure that no impurities from touching or handling can influence the production process and that the quality remains unaffected from changes in humidity, temperature, and everything. It's a really successful mass production process. So another good reason to use BYD batteries is BYD is one of the leaders in developing new battery technology. Here we've got the new BYD Blade battery. This battery is not used in the premium range. However, it's designed specifically for electric vehicles, but I'd just like to highlight some of the cutting edge research that BYD does. So here we can see some of the nail puncture tests that they do on some batteries. On our left, they're testing nickel NCM, nickel cobalt manganese batteries. And what they did is they put an egg on it and they punctured it with a nail, and the egg was blown away. In the middle, they're testing an LFP battery. And they put a little egg on it to see what happens to the egg. They punctured it. There was some gas, and the bottom of the egg was a little charred, but the top of the egg was uncooked. And then on our right, we've got the BYD Blade battery. And when they actually tested this battery, they punctured it with a nail. And in the video that they show of that test, you actually have to fast forward the video to see the effects of the nail puncture test. And this is one of the worst things that can happen to a battery, is for it to be punctured by a nail. And the egg remains completely uncooked. There's a link to the video in the PDF. So one of the nice things about how BYD approaches their production process is vertical integration. This means that BYD's got a very strong say in every step of the manufacturing process. So they've got preferred suppliers who supply high quality materials. Then BYD does their own in-house materials research on how to manufacture the anodes and the cathodes, etc. And then within that, BYD then dictates what the process development will be around integrating those materials into the product. And that results in a high degree of control over that. And also BYD does a lot of R&D on a cell level to ensure that the batteries are always at the latest technological advancements. With regards to the controls of the batteries, BYD also manufactures their battery management systems in-house, and their modules and the packaging. Everything is done within the BYD network. This results in BYD being able to control the quality at every step of the way. Here we can see a bit about the German market share. And I'm using the German market as an example because, believe it or not, Germany has got an enormous market for solar, even though they've got not much sun, and they've got quite a huge market for batteries. And it's a good indicator of quality because the German market tends to be quite particular about the quality of batteries. And here we can see BYD has got 19% of that market share. So we're one of the market leaders in Germany. Here we can see some of the production that BYD's busy with. In 2014, BYD only manufactured 4 gigawatt hours, and in 2019, they manufactured 40 gigawatt hours per year. That's a 10-fold increase in about 5 years. So BYD is really looking to ramp up their production to meet demand. And here we can see it's just a logarithmic scale where they're planning to bring more and more production online. They've got several other mega factories that will come online soon. Now I'd like to move on to the South African market and the South African energy market specifically, and how that affects lithium battery sales. So here we can see a graph from Stats SA, and what they're doing is they're testing. They did a survey on the number of households that rated their electricity supply as good. So in 2018, we can see in the Western Cape, and this graph is divided in by province. So in the Western Cape, we can see 84% of our households thought the supply was good, the electricity supply, and in Gauteng, only 57%. This relates to the South African market because we also have load shedding. So when there is load shedding, typically the demand for lithium batteries goes up because people want backup. And when there's not load shedding, then typically the market tends to quiet down. But there's still a high market in lots of our other provinces because the supply of electricity there isn't necessarily rated as good. So here we can see a little index of the World Bank rating of our reliability. And here we can see South Africa at the bottom. And in 2017, we had quite a good year, but unfortunately, it's tanked off a little bit since then. We're probably sitting at about 3.5 at the moment. This shows that there's always going to be a market for lithium batteries in South Africa because of the low ratings of our electrical supply. And here we can see how the weather affects the demand. In winter, we typically have a large spike. This is a graph from Stats SA of the municipal sales and electricity to residences. And here we can see huge spikes in winter. Typically in winter our grid is strained, so there's also a seasonal demand based on the weather. And here's just a little graph on the year-on-year change in the supply of electricity. Here you can see in 2019 we had quite a dip in the supply of electricity due to lack of supply from our supplier, which is Eskom in South Africa. And unfortunately, that had a bit of a knock-on effect on the economy. Here you can see a 5% drop in the amount of electricity supplied. So this indicates an unreliable grid. Also, then in that situation, people will be looking to secure their own reliable electricity, and that results in people purchasing lithium batteries. So who's AfriPlus and where do we fit in the equation? AfriPlus is the official service provider for BYD and the BBox lithium batteries in the Southern African region. Our goals are to provide quality technical support, quality battery training, and to service warranties. Welcome to contact us at support@afriplusenergy.co.za. Everyone who's registered will receive the PDF via email and a copy of all the questions that are raised in chats. We've also got a support portal, so that helps us with the registering any questions. So if you'd like to register, if you've got a BYD system and you want to register as an installer, if you can go to support.afriplusenergy.co.za and just register as an installer, then you'll see, when you log in, you'll see this page. And if you want to register a system, then you can just click on the system and then put all the details of the system into the portal. And then should you have an existing installation that requires, and someone of the old type, which is the BBox 2.5 and the 13.8s, and they want to expand, they want to make it bigger, you can register the system and then add an extension request, and then we'll be able to assist in that regard. So here we've got some frequently asked questions, which is why, and the question that quite often pops up is, why is BYD launching a new generation of products? And one of the particular reasons they did is to bring the batteries into the 21st century. A lot of the old batteries, they had cables in between the little batteries, and you had to put little, you had to set dip switches to set addresses. So the new batteries, you don't have to do any dip switch settings to set addresses. You don't have to have any little cables in between modules. All your firmware is done online. All your firmware is done remotely with an app. And then you also have online monitoring. So it's quite a big leap, quite a leap forward that BYD wanted to take to make sure that their batteries are 21st century compatible. And then, how's the new range going to affect your projects and your customers? Within our new premium range, there's something for everyone. So the new batteries will be able to fill the shoes of the old ones. Please refer to our family replacement guide if you have any doubts about which batteries will replace which. And the question we quite often get asked is, where can we find a BBox Premium? If you just get in touch with your regular wholesaler, they'll typically be able to help you out. If you have any problems in that regard, please contact us and we'll be able to put you in touch with someone who'll be able to assist. So, question we quite often get is, where can we get old generation batteries to expand systems? So with regards to that, a few slides earlier, I showed how to register on our system and how to request an extension. However, if you've got any problems, you're welcome to contact us at info@afriplusenergy.co.za. And the best way to expand your system is just get in contact with the installer and ask him to get in contact with the distributor if he's got any problems with the portal. And again, if there are any issues, just contact us at info@afriplusenergy.co.za. And other question, what should you do if your battery inverter system's not working properly? The best step is always to contact your installer first, because he's got deep knowledge of the system and he'll be able to assist. And then if the installer requires any assistance, he's welcome to contact us directly or through his wholesaler. And there's our contact details. info@afriplusenergy.co.za. So will there be more AfriPlus webinars? Yep, there's going to be more webinars covering various topics in depth. So please stay tuned. So where can you download data sheets? You can download data sheets and other technical information from bydbatterybox.com/downloads. So we've got 10 minutes left for Q&A. So we can just open up the chat see here and have a look see at the chat questions. And so we're going to answer some questions in the chat. If anyone's got any questions, if they can just pop them through in the chat, and then we'll be able to answer them. At the moment, I can see there aren't any questions in the chat. So if anyone's got any questions, they're welcome to ask them now. We're just going to leave a little pause if anyone's got any questions. Okay. I think that concludes the BYD webinar. Thank you very much for everyone for attending. Everyone will be emailed a copy of the webinar. And thanks for attending, and please watch the space for further webinars. Thank you.
Sorry, I think we have a question here from Sean. The inverter, the high voltage inverters seems to be limited. What is the full list of the current inverter?
Oh, here we go. Okay, so you've got some questions. Okay, so there is at bydbatterybox.com/downloads, there is actually a full list of downloads. Can you still see the presentation? Is that correct? Okay, good. Okay. Okay, I'm just going to put the link in the description in the chat quickly. And I see another question, who are the resellers? Can I ask which country you're asking about? From Henry. South Africa, okay. Sorry, Khan, could you grab that question, please?
So the previous generation, a lot of installers will get it from Seagen. Currently, they don't have any new stock yet. We still discussing with them on the stock level. The other distributor is Cronish SA. Let me just get the Cronish SA. I can just give me a second. I'll post a link here. You can follow chronishsolar.com. They're a European company, and they currently have also joined distribution for the BYD product in South Africa, or Southern Africa to be exact. They have stock on the LVL 15.4 batteries, so they're ready to support you on that. Stock, as everybody, some of you might wonder that we don't have the full range of the battery yet, because as everybody can understand, this year has been a quite dramatic year. What is the warranty period for the LVL battery? 5 years or 10 years? So on the warranty letter, which you can also get it from the distributor, or we can happily to send it to you. It's all 10 years, so it's a 10 years performance warranty and 10 years product warranty, where the generation, or actually we call it the Gen 1, which one we use in South African market, is 5-year product warranty. It's on the hardware. It's where you mostly for your PC port, and 10 years performance warranty on the battery. And now the latest product is 10-year on both, on the product and for the performance. If I can go a little bit in depth on that as well, is that in the past, and a lot of the other battery supplier, is that we talk about the cycle life, and it's always a sort of a difficult question to answer because of the you can't really calculate cycle life to get to have a full full understanding. We want to calculate what's the maximum energy capacity and managing performance, managing output that you can get. So in the warranty letters, or the latest warranty letters, we actually give you the minimum output guarantee. It's almost the same idea as your car warranty. So like 100,000 kilometer, or 5 years warranty, or 10,000 kilometer, which one comes first? So it's in other way easier for the installer to use that number and calculate what's the energy performance they can get out of it within 10 years. Another question we have here is, what is the warranty period of the, will you replace the warranty case include the fabric cost to the African country? That is a trick question. So hopefully that your distributor in other African country will assist you on that. We will send it to your distributor or your installer, who is obviously able to assist you, and they will assist you from there. If, however, that your installer is unable to assist you, then we'll look into it how to minimize the cost that the user or the end user consumer will have to pay. In the typical cases, ideally, yes, we will require them to send it back. But at that particular, we will have to how we can minimize the cost for the consumer. Yes, we will require to have the faulty battery send it back. Currently, we're in discussion with the BYD. We understand that we will pay that cost. However, one thing we also need to, although we bear in cost, we also need to have a full access of the condition of the battery, the environment of the battery, and obviously the data sheet of battery. If, however, from the data sheet that we extract from the battery, we can clearly see if the battery has been abused, or the installation environment is not ideal for the site. All that will also take into consideration. So if the installer does not adhere to the installation environment, and that obviously will affect your warranty. But again, that's sort of like in detail from the PCS.
So in terms of the batteries, they've got online monitoring. So we've got different terminologies for the bits that go into the battery, and all the logs that are on the battery are logged on a system level. So we'll be able to see cell voltage, and all the data that we'll be able to see if we were sitting next to the battery, we can see remotely. So we'll be able to tell if it's quite often, 70% of the time, just from that data, we can tell if it's a battery fault or an external fault. Does that answer the question? I presume the PCS stands for the power control system, which is like integrated into the battery, which relays the data to you. Our terminology, we call it the BCU and the PDU and the the BMU.
I think in short, power conversion.
Oh, battery inverter. Oh, okay. So yes, the data that we get is actually from the battery directly, and it's very helpful to have the data from the inverters and from the batteries itself. Our batteries connect directly to the internet, so we can get our data independently from the inverter. However, it is also good to see the inverter data. Is going wrong.
Your voice disappeared for like 2 seconds. Maybe you want to repeat that a bit.
Okay. So yeah, we get our data straight from our battery. So our information that we get is independent of the inverter system.
I think maybe we should maybe we from I think
it's always nice to.
So what you can make sure that we are not really trying to cheat the data. So we will have a copy of the battery data that is obviously for our examining as well. Oh well, you can also examine it, and we also ask for data analysis from the inverter. So we have two set of the data to examine whether is any external installation problem. Is it actually a factory problem, or is it an external installation problem or fault? So again, the 90% of the time, I wouldn't say even 90, I would say 90% of the time, it will be more or less an installation issue, but that wouldn't really cause a huge damage to the battery cells. So we had a case of a customer. He had a 30 kilowatt installation BYD battery bank, and unfortunately his house got struck by lightning, so all the system has burnt, but there weren't any damages with the cells. So what happened was that what he did was, obviously it was insured, but again, he just had to replace the PC board or the BMS that was with the old model, and everything is actually functioning again. So 99% of the time, the batteries won't damages. Most of the time, damage will happen will be the PC board, which will be easily able to replace it. Another question. In our region and not at a HVS. Question. Unfortunately, that's what we get. For the HVS currently, to my understanding, only offer in Europe. I think they have a more. I'm not too sure. Maybe we can get. We have BYD Carson from. He's the responsible person for Southern African market. Maybe he can respond to that. That's unfortunately, to my understanding, that there is actually 3 categories. There's HVM, SM, and H. The high voltage, small, medium, and large. The large The large typically are only used in the US, the medium and the small in Europe, and unfortunately, I think for South Africa, I think the median I think the research we have is probably more suitable than the small. But again, we can maybe ask the Carson to have that more clarify on that. The new line of battery also have a single board BMS.
So the BMS is on the new batteries. So if we look at the LVS, the tower module has the batteries themselves, and they've got a little, each module has got its own battery balancing in it. However, the power controls are actually contained in the PDU, which is in the top module, which connects to the batteries. So the battery management is sort of split between the modules and the connector on the top. The connector on the top does the power connection, so the quick disconnect and that sort of thing. And the BMS in the battery module does the things like the cell balancing. So the BMS functionality is sort of split between the two areas.
Battery be damaged when customer use higher PC capacity than the standard data sheet.
Yes. Yes. So for instance, if you've got, supposing you put a 30 kilowatt hour battery, 30 kilowatts of inverters on a 15 kilowatt battery, or more commonly, if you put 8 kilowatts of inverter on a 5 kilowatt battery, typically what happens is it doesn't get damaged immediately. What happens is the inverter tries to charge or discharge. Typically it's on discharge, because on charge the BMS can typically regulate how much power goes into the battery. But on discharge, if the grid fails, the batteries have got no option but to function. And if more power goes out of the batteries than they're rated for, generally that's not an issue. But if it happens repeatedly, then quite often the batteries can get damaged. Especially on backup, we tend to find that if the batteries trip regularly, that's generally not good for the batteries. It's generally, we've got a guide, minimum recommended batteries, and that always shows the amount of batteries you should put with which inverter. And then if you follow that guide, then the batteries fall under the warranty. If the batteries are installed outside of those parameters, whereby they're not installed with the minimum recommended, then unfortunately they're outside of the battery warranty.
The battery itself, obviously, we have safety feature for the safety feature on the PC board or the BMS to protect the cells. So that's when the tripping will happen most of the time, or there's any warning signal that will happen on the LED lights, which on the new model, it will show you what the battery pack will go into self-protect mode to protect itself. So that usually, I don't think you can continue using the system. It will force to shut down. So we ideally we hope the installer will follow the rules, and we have a few cases that the installer install very little batteries and a very high output inverter. I think it was an 8 kilowatt SMA Sunny Island, if I remember correctly, only on a 5 kilowatt battery bank, and that caused quite a problem. Especially not just for us, but also for the consumer, because they incorrect information is passed on, and we had to find a solution to let the end customer not to feel being cheated, because misinformation, miscommunication happened. But that's a separate case that we had to solve. So ideally, we want to the installer to understand the preferred what's the word should I look for?
Recommended
preferred
minimum requirements.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think we are close to an hour. Don't want to waste anybody's time. All your question is we want to thank you very much all your question. So it kind of give us a better understanding the one next one maybe go into detail on the PC board or on the capacity on inverter list. If you have any more particular, maybe you have a question on the any plans to introduce 2C or higher batteries?
No, not that I'm aware of.
I don't think so at this moment.
If we can just go to the PowerPoint slide, and if we go back, if we see here, I'm just going to get to the slide here on the C rating. Here we go. So for instance, on the LVL, the maximum, your maximum current is 250 amps continuous, and it can peak to 375. So your maximum amount of power that you can get out is, if we say it's 250 times 50. So the maximum amount of power you can get out on a 15 kilowatt hour battery is 12.5 kilowatt hours continuous. So typically it's about we can find it's nearly 1C, yeah.
No, we can perform under the 1C, but 2C at this moment, unfortunately, we don't see a need for that at this moment. If the market are mature enough and or has that requirement, I'm sure BYD will step into that and look into how to improve performance. So BYD is on a continuous lookout on improving the battery performance and technology, and that's what earlier on we were talking about. We had a short introduction about the blade battery, where that is introducing to the latest EV cars. So at the end of the presentation that I haven't showed yet, we have a various of installation guide video on YouTube where you can see the LVL and HVM. And there's the, Ivan, if you can scroll down to that page. And later when we send it to you, you can go check it out. Check it out on the YouTube channel that we have uploaded.
Sorry, my screen sharing stopped for some reason.
It's fine. I'll just post a link here so people can have a look on the. So earlier on we're talking about the testing video, all that you can see that on the YouTube channel. So if you can just give me a little bit time, I'll find that link for you.
Okay, here we go. Can you see my screen?
Yeah.
Okay, so you've got the web links, and these will be emailed with the PDF of our presentation to all the participants of this webinar. And we can see there's a few links, which is the AfriPlus website, the AfriPlus web portal, and the downloads. And there's also links to several videos. There's a couple of videos on how to use the BConnect app in commissioning. A couple of example installations of the LVL, pardon me. There's also a BYD HVM installation and a couple of videos about the cell automation and the BYD blade battery nail penetration tests, which is also very interesting.
All right, we had now past 12 minutes, and I do apologize that. We will do another, just one small thing. We're going to do another webinar with next week, and we'll announce it probably on Monday with one of our distributor, Cornish SA, and also with our inverter partner, GoodWe, talking about the latest compatibility on the high voltage with the high voltage inverter and the latest BYD battery bank. So thank you very much, everyone that attended. We will send these PDF out to a person who has registered online with us via Quick Ticket. If you didn't, you're welcome to send me emails on the info, and then we'll send you the PPT. And our next one, we will also our next webinar, we will refine a little bit further more on sort of in detail on the inverter and the BYD battery. So thank you very much, and thank you for your time, and hope everybody have a good weekend, and cheers.
Thank you very much for attending. Hope everyone keeps safe.